Welcome aboard. I'm Katherine and we're in Art Skoolie. There's something about spring that just makes me want to work in miniature. I bet it's the baby animals, or the little tiny blossoms, or the little promises that the gardens hold. And so I want to make a little kitty cat doll with you guys today. Check the description box below for the pattern if you'd like to follow along. For this project, I used 3 fabrics, one for their fur, one for their top, and one for their skirt. I also used a small piece of lace as an embellishment, as well as embroidery floss for their little toe beans, their face, and then 2 buttons for the eyes. Of course, you can decorate yours however you want and use any materials you can find. I'm going to start by laying out my pattern pieces. Now these ones don't have seam allowance, but I'll include a version on my downloadable pattern that has seam allowance built in. Some people prefer to work with seam allowance and others prefer to add their own. So I'm going to pin that to my brown corduroy here, cutting out 2 so that I have a front of the head and the back of the head. While I have the brown out, I'm also going to pin my paw pattern down so that I can make the arms. Now remember, you will have to cut 4 of these, 2 for each of 2 arms. Now I'm going to cut out around my pattern piece. Remember, I am adding my own seam allowance here, and so that my arms match, I'm going to use the version that I cut out already, instead of the pattern again, so that I have 4 of the same arm. The body that I make for this little kitten doll doesn't actually touch the ground. The skirt that you're going to add later allows it to stand up. However, you can make your body longer or shorter. If you were going to give it little legs or add little pants, you might want to elongate the body. But I found that just making this little kind of tombstone potato shape works really well for the body. So now, taking either needle and thread or sewing machine, there's absolutely no wrong way to do this, you're going to go ahead and sew around all of your shapes. I like to start with the head, then do the arms. I will do the body later because I'm going to trap my arms and head inside that body seam as I sew it. After you've sewn around the head, you're going to want to clip your corners. This will allow your seams to lay a little bit flatter, and then turn it inside out. I like to use the end of a paintbrush or a chopstick to point out all of my corners, kind of just smoosh them till they lay and look nice. I'm doing the embroidery on the paws before I sew the 2 sides together just because that paw is so tiny that for me it's easier to do those. But you'll notice on the face, I didn't sew the buttons and do the face embroidery until I had it all the way sewn together. Now that's just personal preference. If it's easier for you to work with the flat pieces of fabric, please do your face and then put the right sides together, sew around the edge and flip it. For me, I didn't want it to be crooked, so I am going to go ahead, sew the whole head together, get it in, and then sew the face on later. Luckily, it's big enough, and sewing on 2 buttons and a little nose and mouth for me wasn't too tricky. But again, you want to make sure that it's easy for you and fun for you. So after you finish your 3 French knots to be the little toe beans, you're going to put your right sides together of your fabric. That's the front of the paw with the embroidery and the back of the paw, each of 2 sets. And you're going to go all the way around those, sewing them up. Afterwards, you're going to use that same chopstick or safety pin or whatever you need to flip those around. After my shapes are turned out, I stuff them with the batting or the wool scraps or whatever you have on hand, and then I'm going to place them in between my body pieces. You can see here I'm using a little stitch to sew both of those sides together and a ladder stitch on the side. Should we finish up our buddies?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have cut a piece of fabric right here, and this is going to be the skirt.
Yeah?
I know you did, little sprout. Alright, so I'm going to hem this, which means I'm going to make the edge look really nice. Right? See, look. Now how pretty that looks. What you doing, little sprout?
Pins everywhere.
Why are there pins everywhere? Thank you. And then bend it, and then push forward. Look at that. You did it, Bug.
That was the last one.
The edge that I hemmed becomes the bottom of the skirt. On the top edge, I'll fold it over and run a wide gathering stitch. Then I'll stitch the two short sides together to make it into a continuous loop. That way, when I pull the top gathering stitch, it becomes a little gathered skirt. You could also sew a tube and tie it with a ribbon at the waist. Hello, friend.
Did you see mine? Did you see mine?
Yeah.
You had to play with her.
Little Sprout and I decided that our cat needed a flower crown, so I grabbed some wool felt and we cut out little leaves and little flower petals. These I attached to our kitten using little beads, as well as some more French knots and some tiny little stitches that I just sewed right through the crown of the cat. I think the fun thing about this project is, of course, when you choose your fabrics, you can make it look like any cat that you've had in the past or present or dream of in the future. And of course you can decorate them with anything that you find. Little pieces of shells, little flowers, wool, felt, buttons. The possibilities are endless, and I think that's what makes this so much fun. Ta-da! And there you have it. A sweet little kitten doll. That's all for this time, but you are always welcome aboard the bus. See you next time. Bye.